Coming up, with the NBA season a little over a month away, we take a look at Brooklyn's young dynamic duo, Nicholas Claxton and Noah Clowney. Could they form a dynamic defensive duo for Brooklyn for years to come? We answer that question coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We're 100% free on all those great platforms, and let you know that now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet just $5 and get 3 weeks free trial for the NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And Doug, if we're talking about silver linings for the upcoming season, if we're talking about thinking about the future, there's something there when we look at Nicholas Claxton and Noah Clowney and the ability they may have to form one heck of a tandem, specifically on the defensive end.
Yeah, look, we're only looking at the future at this point. When we got, we've already done multiple podcasts about the whole entire draft class basically for next year. Like, there's no one more future thinking than this podcast around the Nets thing. That's because the short term might be slightly painful. We'll get into some of that win total stuff later. But yeah, when it comes to looking,
Doug,
at
by the way,
yeah.
I'm here in the future. It's lovely. Everyone's going to really enjoy themselves. The things are fantastic. No more zippers on pants. It's amazing.
Oh, no more zippers on pants. Yeah, okay, I think I'm for that. Yeah. Okay, I was just trying to quickly deduce if I was for that or against that. I think I'm definitely for that. Okay, so good start. The when we're talking about these guys, so we're talking about bright spots, and especially we're talking about players who, think about this recently about a year from now, like what the odds are that different players were even on the Nets team. Right. Like I was looking through the list of the guys that were on the team now and who was even a candidate to be even on the team literally 1 year from now. And it's a big question mark. Really, for me, 1 and 2 was Claxton and Clowney. And before even Cam Thomas, who I talked about the other day on an extension podcast, because these two guys are just still in like the younger part of the age curve. And we already know that they're like, the contracts are locked up and that they're just guys that you can kind of have on your team to build within a specific type of window and get better. And when you look at these guys playing together, we saw it a little bit last year. I'll go through some of the numbers shortly. But what we saw even from the eye test is that, hey, the concerns sometimes around, Claxton specifically playing with other bigs, a la Simmons or whatever, that's not a concern with Clowney because he can actually shoot from the outside. So I think we're going to see a lot of this pairing this year. And I think that it has the chance to be one of sort of the most underrated, unheralded defensive duos in the league. Mostly because the Nets are going to suck everywhere else, and that's going to drive down the interest. But it won't be from the lack of these guys being able to actually really, really dial it up on the defensive end.
Yeah, I think it's funny because, Noah Clowney, obviously, he gets the small but very exciting sample size at the end of last season, and that gets the fan base, including you and I, who we weren't sure with his age and how long it might take his development. Then you get this spike, and you feel like, okay, we're ready to now carry that forward a little bit. Ironically, it comes after you feel like the season didn't go the way it was supposed to. It comes before you get to an offseason where you end up making the trade with Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks. So there's this weird pocket where, and this is just an aside, Noah Clowney comes up. You didn't think he was going to be ready as early as he was. He shows that he's going to be ready earlier than you thought he was. But then before you get to use him with the team that wants to win basketball games now, they trade away one of the key pieces, and all of a sudden he becomes now a key cornerstone of the rebuild. So there's really the workflow of Noah Clowney's success in Brooklyn went from key contributor on competitive team to still very important and a part of the bright future. But now you have to reconfigure, how does he fit in with the current roster that you have? And when you tie that into Nicholas Claxton, who we all know has been a player, incredibly valuable defensively, has the question marks on the offensive end, or at a minimum has the question marks when the roster is not properly constructed on the offensive end. You kind of weave these two guys together, and you can see, we'll get to the defensive side of it, but even offensively as well. Two players with their length, with their versatility, with their athleticism, where you can finally say, maybe going forward here, oh, two young players that will complement each other at these two positions, rather than constantly be saying, how do we break up the tandem of Ben Simmons and Nicholas Claxton? Why can't we get Day'Ron Sharpe on the court often enough? Like, you always had to ask a question of one half of the tandem. Now these guys seemingly on paper will complement each other really well.
Yeah, and you highlight a really great point in that, like, sort of what the systemic problem that most teams face when they have very, very good defenders is that
Yeah.
often a very, very good defender is not very good on offense. And now, if a very, very good defender is very good on offense, then that player is on the All NBA team,
It's a
right?
superstar.
Basically,
Right.
right? Essentially, like that. Like when you do those two things together, you are among the best players in the league.
They call
You
those
know,
Giannis's.
the Kawhi, guys like this. It's
Kawhi.
like, oh, you're good at both. Okay, great. You're one of the. Let's talk about now how high on the list you are.
They don't need a last name anymore when you refer to them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But often what happens with these defensive only guys, or sort of like unidimensional bigs, right? That like really can't do much else except like rim run, and rim protect. Maybe with some DHO stuff, is that you run into a problem eventually systemically where you can't play them all together. It's like, hey, it's great to have Matisse Thybulle on the court to play. If you have two of them, then your offense is going to be the worst offense in the league by a lot, right? And so you run into this. You can sometimes get away with playing one defensive guy out there because it was surrounding them with a bunch of other pieces. But the second you really gild the lily and go for two, you just give away too much on the offensive end, which is still arguably more important just from an overall basketball standpoint. Where the Claxton Clowney piece comes in is that the second one of those guys can stretch the floor,
Yep.
right, and just be a floor spacer because you can shoot threes, which Clowney has shown that he's going to be able to do. Now, all of a sudden, it opens up this new world where you can play them together. By the way, the guy offensively doesn't necessarily need to be like an on-ball creator. You just need to not be a zero at the other thing, which is spacing and shooting. And once you can at least do that, then you have to keep it honest. It's why the Claxton Simmons thing doesn't work. It's like, are they both great defenders? Yeah, they're both when they're healthy, among the best defensive players in the entire league. Why does it look so bad? Because all defenses know it's like, thanks. The second they run down the offensive floor together and they both want to stand in the dunker spot, or Simmons just wants to DHO with his back to the basket. It's like, okay, well, this is easy. We don't have to do anything here. And so those are the problems you run into.
And it's funny, too, because we're going to get into here a second some more of the specifics. And we got a sample size of these two players, Claxton and Clowney, on the court together. But it's also a good reminder of sometimes I think with the fan base, when you critique Nicholas Claxton's game, yeah, you're talking about the things that he can't do. But now if you have the right complement, it doesn't matter that he doesn't do those other things. And that's the difference between being a single name superstar versus just being a good player, a talented player that needs to fit in with the other pieces that make sense. So let's dive a layer deeper on Nicholas Claxton and Noah Clowney, how they can share the floor together and how they can both benefit on the defensive and offensive end. We'll get into that coming up here in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Look, you heard us talk a ton about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. They got a little something different for you now through September 22nd. You heard Adam at the top say all FanDuel customers can bet $5. You get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's a way to spend the Sunday. When you, with a YouTube TV base plan, you can watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. That's the key. All you need is a Google account. We got one of those. Current form of payment. You got one of those too. You can cancel anytime. If it's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app. Use it for FanDuel's Double Your Winnings for all of Sunday. That's 9:15 coming up here. Pre-game money line bets. The Profit Boost will be starting live Thursday, 9/12, so we're already well into that. View your account page now to learn more about the boost. It's so easy. Just go to your account page. Those boosts are right in there. You click on them, and you are good to go. Visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, so as we continue today's Locked On Nets podcast, talking about Nicholas Claxton and Noah Clowney and how they can best benefit one another going to the upcoming season. It's also funny, too, that Nicholas Claxton now becomes one of, although we know we still have veterans like Cameron Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith right now, Bogdanovich. We assume these guys are going to be sooner than later out the door. Like, he will end up being the elder statesman. Fast forward this a year from now, Nicholas Claxton's going to be the veteran in the room. There'll be arguably nobody that will be older than Nicholas Claxton a year from now on this roster, save for a couple of maybe, bench filling guys or contract eating that the Nets decide to do, which is just interesting because we spent the last now several years always mentioning him as being the young player behind the superstars, the young player supporting the Mikal Bridges and Cameron Johnson driven roster. It's now going to turn over, and he's going to be the guy that needs to anchor this team, at least for the foreseeable future, coming off that contract extension.
Yeah. Like Nick Claxton, veteran statesman, is not what we expected to hear. But look, life comes at you fast in the NBA when you choose to reset it and everyone is out the door. And some of these older guys are going to be out, presumably out the door too. And you're right. Like he's just going to be, I mean, it's already the longest tenure net now, which is wild to think about. And then it's going to be by a lot, probably pretty soon. I mean, well, I guess the Cam Thomas extension, but the Nets are just in such a state of flux now that this is kind of what ends up happening when it comes to these guys like playing together too. I mean, we did get a sample size. You mentioned at the beginning that we didn't get to see a ton of it near the end of the year, mostly because the team's reticence around bringing up Claxton too early, which I think we both agreed that was correct. Like, I think we both agreed that timing made sense. He came up in Clowney, came up in a pressureless environment because the Nets had already raised the white flag, and that was the right thing to do. But because of it, we only got, I think I have it right here, we only got 92 minutes of these guys playing together. I will say, though, 92 minutes.
Pretty good looking 92 minutes.
92 minutes of a team that was just absolutely in the basement at this point.
Yeah.
Because they just didn't care what was happening. And they got 92 minutes of a 112 offensive rating and a 109 defensive rating for a +3 overall net rating. And it passes the eye test also.
Yeah.
That's a situation where I do wonder this year about if they're both really focused on this part of their game, like if we could see some gain, like we could see some positive numbers. Like let me put it this way. If I had to choose a 2 or 3 man combination now that would have the best chance at like the Nets actually being on the plus side of the net rating,
sure,
I probably would go these two together. I'd probably pick, is that fair? I was just thinking about this off the top of my head, but like, is it fair to say that these would be the two we would pick? Like if we just had to pick a duo right now?
Yeah, if you had to pick, I mean, you said 2 or 3. So if I had to pick a duo, it would be those two. And if I injected a third, it would be Cam Thomas, right? Like, give me a dynamic on-ball scorer in his own right, and then give me 2 guys, one of which, as we're saying, on the offensive end can stretch the floor. The other guy that can push towards the basket, that can play off the boards, defensive versatility. Like, yeah, if you had to say, like, pick your 2 players, which actually I think is an interesting question to ask here. If you had to pick your 2 core players right now, and Cam Thomas is obviously on the table, I think I agree with you. Would you say, like, pick 2? Everybody else goes away and you move forward with this team. Would you pick Nicholas Claxton to pair because it's with Noah Clowney over keeping a guy like Cam Thomas in the mix?
Yeah.
Knowing that you have that draft coming up and knowing you have that talent coming in.
Only because I knew for a sure thing that they're going to be good on defense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I'm just not sure enough on the other part. Like, I know Cam Thomas's offensive game. Like, is it optimized to play with either of these 2 guys on offense? I don't know. Right. Like, I think I know enough about his offensive game, I think now, but we would need to see like a pretty significant expansion in that offensive game to make sure it was, again, optimized as for a 5-man unit, not optimized for Cam Thomas to put up good numbers, which he will do. Optimized for a good offensive 5-man unit. I'm just not positive. I think it can get there, but I just don't know. With these 2 guys, I do know it. Defense travels. You know what I mean? Like, defense, that is something that goes everywhere and is sort of independent of who the other 3 guys on the court are for the most part. You don't want, if you have 3 total turnstiles, but still, I still know exactly what I'm getting there because those things play in tandem with each other. Clowney and Claxton playing in tandem with each other on defense plays better there than Clowney and Claxton playing in tandem on offense because I just need a few other things to work. I don't need as many things to work in the defensive end. So that's why I would choose those 2 guys. I don't even think it's close, honestly. Like, I don't even think it's close around any other 2-man pairing for what rates out the best. Because I'm not positive enough on Cam unlocking everyone else on the offense. Does that make sense? Like, I think that's just off the top of my head, but I think I feel pretty confident with that take.
Well, yeah, and not that finding someone that can score at an elite level. These guys don't just grow on trees. And obviously, we've gone through chapter and verse, the Cam Thomas journey and what the Nets have done, stunting his ability to be on the court, et cetera, et cetera. But I can paint a picture more easily of plugging in an offensive weapon, an offensive minded player, pure scorer, knowing I have this defensive duo on the court already more easily than I can. Why? Because I've seen the sample over these last handful of years where the Brooklyn Nets continue to struggle to find guys that can share the court with Nicholas Claxton. And some might say, well, that's a Claxton problem, not an everybody else problem. I disagree. I think that you need to be more athletic. I think you need to be more versatile. You look at a veteran like Dorian Finney-Smith. Was he a good defender? Sure. Is he athletic and versatile in the way that we think Noah Clowney can be? Of course not. And we saw sample sizes of this in those 92 minutes. One of the biggest things that jumped off the court to me when you watch those games was the ability to have Nicholas Claxton be anchoring back towards the paint, but make the decision, I need to go out and defend, right? Switching defense. I'm going to get on the perimeter here. Now, typically, even with Ben Simmons, and I'm not going to give the caveat of where his health is, he's not a guy that was going to run with the players to the basket and deny them at the rim. Day'Ron Sharpe, excellent rebounder. He is not going to extend his defense out towards the perimeter. The fact that you had a player in Noah Clowney who could be playing a little bit away from the basket, but then when the pass and the offense moved away from Nick Claxton and he didn't have the time to get back to defend at the rim, we saw Noah Clowney show the speed, quickness, and versatility to range over and make the defensive plays around the basket. And I think that that's one of the key components of how these guys can be so successful on that end. It's the fact that they're both athletic, quick, and rangy enough to be able to extend away and contract, right? And the Nets just have not had another player like that, even in some of these individual places where you say, I can like Dorian Finney-Smith on the perimeter. I can like Mikal Bridges on ball defense at times, but he's not big enough. He's not strong enough, right? There's always been these weaknesses in the areas of these games. And these two players, at least on paper, and this small sample size, showcase the ability to be able to play off one another, very well on that end of the floor.
And it sure seems like they can both switch 1 to 5, right? We've seen Claxton take plenty of assignments on a switch, a perimeter switch, where he's gotten onto the lead guard. You don't want it to happen every time, but when push comes to shove, if he's the perimeter defender,
he can ride their hip all the way to the basket,
or just get his length out in front of the person to just make it hard to even get sort of downhill. Like we've seen that happen. He's really one of the best guys in the game at that. And and Clowney shows the ability to sort of be in that same mold, right? Like he's not huge, but I know this drives people nuts around sort of the net center positions for a while. It's like, oh, it's not big enough. It's like, yeah, but you get something back for this. What you get back in the trade-off is that, yes, he's not crazy big. And if he's down there in the block with Embiid, it's going to look, it's going to not look great. But where it does look great is when you are running a full 1 through 5 switching scheme and you get isolated on, the Tyrese Maxeys of the world.
Yeah.
You're not completely buried because those guys can hold their own when it comes to it. And knowing that two of those guys can do it. By the way, Simmons can do it too. And this is why, if you paired the three of them together, the defense would be great. I just worry about the net rating because the offense would be so garbagey. But but anyway, so point being, you just the trade-off is that you feel really, really good about any of those guys being in anywhere of the 1 through 5 matchup. And you really couldn't feel that way about any other guy in the Nets, right? For the reasons you mentioned, either you're too small or you're not fast enough or whatever it is. You just really can't say that about those guys. And it's hard to say that about most guys in the league. Most of the guys in the league can't do it, but these guys project to be able to, or have shown to already be able to.
And I think that's a part of what you want to see in this upcoming season, right? We're going to talk about here momentarily. What is the responsibility of Jordi Fernandez in this upcoming year when it comes to developing this tandem potentially? And there is also a little note on the offensive end. I mean, we are very confident about what the defensive tandem can be between these two players. I think there's something interesting when it comes to the offensive end, when it comes to getting out on the fast break, and the way in which Nicholas Claxton might be able to help open up these opportunities for Noah Clowney in a way that we haven't seen because of the limitations of other front court tandems that we've seen from Brooklyn in the past. We'll get into that to close out today's episode in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, let you know that this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, what's something you love to learn? Sometimes you get to be an adult like us. You just find that you're just not learning those new things as often as you like. Maybe just you're thinking back to childhood. It's like, oh man, I used to just take in so much, and now I'm just kind of stuck in the day-to-day grind of life, not learning, growing the way I want to. And we just sometimes can lose that curiosity. Maybe it's gardening, new language. Maybe you just want to beat your friend in a sport, like say pickleball. That all counts here, buddy. It all counts here when it comes to talking about therapy, because therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder. It's good to put you back into that back to school era. It's never too late to start feeling some of those ways about bettering yourself. You can learn coping skills. You can set boundaries. And empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you're just thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. You're going to get matched with a licensed therapist. You switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. No worries there. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp.com. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
All right, so as we continue with today's Locked On Nets episode, we remind you that you're making Locked On Nets your first listen every single day. Thank you. For your second listen, though, check out Locked On NBA podcast. There's no offseason in the NBA. We're a month out from the start of the NBA season, and Locked On NBA is going to give you that daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less, just like your favorite pizza. No one is going to keep you more informed or entertained as Locked On NBA, available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you know it's your team and it's every single day. Okay. We talk about the impact as far as what this is going to look like in the upcoming season, setting some expectations. Obviously, we could sit here and remind everybody that there's a little stat coming out that has already gone in the wrong direction as we're a month away from the NBA, and that's the win total projections for the Brooklyn Nets. But before we get to that, I will just note, in talking about Nicholas Claxton and how he can impact things and how it can tie into Noah Clowney, from Jordi Fernandez, head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, he's great in the pick and roll. He's quick to the rim and he puts pressure on the rim, but also his ability to play in the dribble handoff game, which, as you guys know, lately in the NBA is a style that is very efficient. It helps with ball movement. So when everybody touches the ball and everybody is involved, everybody's happier. Now, listen, that's a little bit of kumbaya at the end, and we all appreciate that. But I do think there's a difference potentially in this upcoming season of seeing Nicholas Claxton, whether it's getting out on the break. I don't want to go all the way back to his high school days where he played point guard, as many of these guys do before they spring up and become too big for the role. But the idea of getting out in transition, and instead of having it, as we're talking about, whether it's Day'Ron Sharpe, whether it's Ben Simmons, the idea of having Noah Clowney trailing that play or running out ahead of it changes the dynamic of what an offensive, set can look like for Brooklyn. And if I can think about Claxton driving towards the paint, getting inside the arc, and being able to effectively crash and throw out to Noah Clowney because he's going to be on a mismatch now because the bigs are going to be sagging into the lane to disrupt Nicholas Claxton, or getting into the dribble handoffs, as Fernandez mentioned, with a player like Noah Clowney. It just changes the dynamic of the offense in a different way. And I find it exciting in a very difficult season upcoming. I find it exciting to think about maybe an aspect of Nicholas Claxton's offensive game that has not been able to be utilized more based on what the team has been constructed like.
Yeah, they've, we saw this with Fernandez, the Sabonis stuff in Sacramento. And, that was a core piece with that. Sabonis, a more dynamic offensive player for sure. So take that with a grain of salt. But they did want to run those kind of sets. We've seen that a little bit from Claxton. Like we saw last year at times where he would run a DHO show and go, and he would actually turn the corner and get to the rim, right? And those were always exciting to see, even if it was a little few and far between, right? Do you think about him seeming like he was going to run a dribble handoff into a guy coming off like maybe a pin down, and all of a sudden he doesn't hand it off because he just gets around his defender and he goes to the rim. Could we see a lot more of that? That'd be great. I would love to be able to see it. The speed on hit aheads with guys like Claxton and Clowney being able to get out in transition, you can see that really happening too. These guys are super, super fast. So I think there's lots of things you can already envision that will probably happen, even if they don't happen in great quantity over the course of the year. But the part where Claxton becomes more of an offensive hub, I'm always like a little hesitant to say it's happening because we've been podcasting for the Nets for 42 years now, and of those 42, 4 of them have been wanting Claxton to really expand his game into these other areas, and it just hasn't totally happened.
It's fair.
Although he has gotten better, I think.
Yeah.
But it's just not. It's never come at
never broke through that ceiling of what we thought could be. Yeah.
No, it's never even come really that close to it, right? And so that's where I always just pump the brakes a little bit on wanting to see this next phase of his game, because I feel like this has been something we've talked about a lot and has never really happened, short of that one corner three he made last year where we all lost our minds.
It was a pretty special moment, and I think if we want to hold on to something, that would be one of them. There's another element to this that maybe we'll get to, we know we'll get to over the course of this offseason and heading towards the regular season, and that's where do the others fit into this? We've mentioned Ben Simmons' name. I think mentioning Day'Ron Sharpe name, as long as he's going to be on this roster, I'm passing Ben Simmons now and moving on to Day'Ron Sharpe.
Who cares where the other guys fall? Doesn't matter. Who doesn't matter? I'm just kidding.
No, because wondering about how do you supplement these two players, right? How do you make it so that you still have the physicality? Because again, in an upcoming season where it's going to be more about development, this is going to fall on the head of Jordi Fernandez. We have from afar confidence in his focus on understanding what the task is coming into this year. And if you're concerned about them being too focused on winning basketball games or what that's going to look like, Doug, It's worth noting that they started at 19.5 for their over-under win total. Doug went ahead and smashed the under on that, and he looks a little bit like a genius because it's already dropped to 18.5 a month out from the NBA season.
Market mover, baby. That's how you get
That's
in
right.
on it. I was like, when we saw that over under came out, I was like, it's the under, man. I can't in good conscience take the over on this. I thought it was so far under. I thought it was just how bad I thought they were going to be. Other people where wanted to put their money where their mouth was, also saw it the same way. Got it bet down to 18.5, which is, I gotta tell you, not easy at these numbers. Like to get going on a 19.5, which is among the lowest opening lines that we've seen in the last like 10 years or something like that. And the people would be like, "Whoa, that feels high."
What would be the yikes? That's a big number. And by the way, that's a big number. What's it set at? Oh, it's under 20. But I'm saying big number. What would I was curious about this. What would the number be? It dropped to 18.5. How low would it go when you would flip and be like, oh, I'm going to bet the over now?
16.5.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I don't feel amazed. Yeah. That's only where I would like set it and absolutely forget it. Right. And that, by the way, that's the easiest thing ever to say because the market's already shown that 18.5 is the number. So the easiest betting advice to ever give is like, lower. Oh, what would be the number? 1.5. Oh, I smashed the over. You know, it's like, so any like
two and a half wins.
I'm caveating to say that this is not good betting advice because the number is not there and there's no market that offers that. And the easiest thing ever is to say is like, oh, I would take it here and I would put my house on it. Yeah, no duh. So would everyone in the world. That's why it's not there. But I think the number is like, I thought I said 18.5 as my guess going into the season, and it was 19.5. I think I had set it at 18.5. So this is right around, because I think this was one over what I thought it was going to be, but now I can't remember if it was 20. I know it was within one game, and no, it was 18.5 because that's why I bet the under. So this is a great podcast. Great content here. So, and point being,
anytime you can spend 30 seconds just inside of Doug Norrie's head as he sifts through some information and data, I think it's worth.
We're not going to pause the show. I'm going to sit here and think for a few seconds here. Don't pause.
Everybody, be quiet.
Hold on. Shut up. I'm thinking. No. There is juice on the over right now. It's like 18.5 over -122. So like it could get back up to that other number. The overall point being is we're looking at like sort of quasi historically low numbers here. And I just always use that to, you make a good point about like sort of setting that as a frame of reference for like what to really expect here. Like, even though we might be excited about future pairings and got things the way these guys can look from a top down level or as a full 15-man roster, this team we're going to be grasping at straws for like what the positives are. And like this 18.5 number just sort of represents that.
And that's my last thought on the Noah Claxton and Nicholas Clowney tandem. Eventually, we just merge these two together and we make the perfect player that we've been waiting for. I think is that like coming into this year, I hope that, and I don't expect it, that Jordi Fernandez and the Nets will not be adverse to playing these guys and making sure the rep count is getting up there, regardless of if you're losing games by 15, 20 points in the fourth quarter. Now, you don't want to overextend them. I think Doug's mentioned this before. We talk about it a lot. You don't need to put extra miles on young legs needlessly over the course of an 82-game loss season. But I do need to make sure that this tandem is developing the right way, that we're seeing that growth from that small 92-minute sample size a year ago, so that we know, yes, these two players are a part of the core and they can function very well together. And we can envision what a Cooper Flag will look like in the mix with these players as well. So there's a delicate balance just from a developmental standpoint and understanding the footprints you want to set for next season, for next draft class, and for 2 years from now. And that's the only thing that I really care about, far greater than any win or loss that they're going to have this season. And I say that understanding that they're going to lose a lot of games because they need to.
Buddy, this is gonna be all about taking those little nuggets of positivity for an 82-game season. This is gonna be the theme of the year, is taking looking at what can translate to the future and then jettisoning the rest of it. All right, we're gonna get out of here. Much appreciate everyone rocking with us through the off season. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you subscribe over on YouTube as well, and keep an eye out because we're gonna have our Nets season preview coming at you in the form of a little, some words that Adam and I have written. So keep an eye out for that. That's coming really soon. 5 things you're going to need to know about this upcoming Nets season that we're really proud about. Make sure that's going to be over on wegotnets.com. You're already laughing, buddy. Why?
No, just marketed so eloquently by Doug Norrie as we close out the show. We're going to have some beautiful words for you. You're going to see them with your eyes. You're going to feel them with your minds. You're going to taste them in your heart.
The words are good. It wasn't the cleanest CTA in the world. I agree with that. But in terms of just like, getting people excited about, creating maybe a little FOMO, here. I mean, come on, everyone knows the buzzwords here. This is what we're doing here. So, but yeah, I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear the downside from you. I'm not really interested. That was
No
good. I
downside.
would do it again.
Wouldn't change a thing. When you're the best of friends having so much fun together, you're not even aware that you're such a funny pair. Why, that is the Fox and the Hound.
Oh, a couple of the all-time great poets. We'll be back again
1980s.
Monday talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
There's a fox and a dog together. Basketball.